guys, how's it going? Welcome back to our weekly recap video. Before we jump into the videos from last week and start answering questions, just one quick reminder that not this weekend, but next weekend, we will be in Seattle at the Northwest Flower and Garden Festival, and we really hope that a lot of you guys are able to make it out. We are really looking forward to meeting you. So the first video from this last week was a fun new tool for trimming branches. We got a new pole saw, battery operated, cordless. It's 10 feet long with an 8-inch blade on the end, and we just wanted to demonstrate it and try it out because I was really excited about it. Because up to this point, I've only ever used a manual pole saw, which we have a really good one from Fiskars. It's the best pole saw manual one I've ever used, but to have one that's battery operated that does the cutting for you can make your job so much quicker. So anyway, it was really fun to use. I think overwhelmingly, the most commonly asked thing was if I ever considered wearing a helmet. Probably should have for this video, and I think it came down to like we couldn't find any of the right stuff in the barn. We have since ordered all brand new safety equipment, so like going forward I will be wearing the proper stuff, and I probably I think your average homeowner gardener probably doesn't go to the lengths to wear the proper stuff, but you should, and I probably especially should, since Russell's joining me, since we're making videos and stuff and whatever. So anyway, definitely should have been wearing a helmet. I was wearing some of Erin's sunglasses, which are not the best safety type glasses, but it's the only thing we could find. Anyway, yes, we have proper stuff actually here. It has arrived since that video went out. Next question was from Shirley. I was wondering about your miniature peach tree. Is it still alive? You put it in a container a year or so ago. Yes, it is still alive. It's a Pixie miniature peach, and it was wonderful. It produced so many peaches last year that were freestone and delicious. This next year, if it blooms and sets as much fruit as it did last year, I'm going to pluck some of those off so that they can form larger peaches, because what happened is I just let it kind of do its thing. I didn't want to mess with it. I was so excited about getting fruit that it was so loaded that the fruit was only about like this big or so. And so if I pluck some of those peaches off and let the other ones form up, they should be like big, nice peaches on this tiny little miniature tree. So very happy with the progress with that tree. I'm trying to keep Russell out of my sweet pea pot that's full of like loose dirt right to my left. Next was from Joan. Where did you get your gloves? I've had the hardest time trying to find a good pair of heavy duty utility gloves. Used to get them through Burpee. They no longer carry. So my gloves are definitely not considered heavy duty. They're the Atlas Nitro gloves. They're really thin. And the reason I like them so much is because I feel like I still have dexterity and I can feel what I'm doing. I don't ever wear heavy duty gloves. So I don't know like a real good brand to tell you on that. Susie said no chainsaw oil to add. That was another very popular question and something I definitely should have mentioned. There is a little reservoir at the end where the blade is where you put bar oil in. And we do have some in here. And I just, like, as we use this tool more and more, I'm sure we'll have a lot more to say about how it's doing for us and the maintenance of it, and like how well the blade's holding up, because it does have a thing in the manual telling you how to sharpen the blade or how to replace it if you need to and that sort of thing. Kristen said, do you keep your DeWalt batteries plugged in when not in use? If so, does that affect their longevity? Our batteries are always dead or dying because they can't be plugged in constantly or they won't take a charge. It's a no-win situation. I totally know what you're talking about, but I think at this point, chargers are maybe a little smarter than they used to be, and I can't, I'm not 100% certain about that, but I don't think that they're just throwing a charge at the battery, even if the battery is full now. I think the battery fills up and then it stops charging. And the only reason I think that is because we're not diligent about taking our batteries off of our chargers. We have 3 chargers lined up, typically always have a battery in one, full or not. And we've never had an issue with our batteries not taking a full charge. So these are all DeWalt tools. It's DeWalt chargers, and we've had really good luck with them. We do not work with DeWalt, by the way. We should. That would be awesome. Debbie said, how can you tell which branches are dead in the winter when everything looks dead? And I also read the instruction manuals, and my husband never does. So the only way I can tell if branches are dead is usually they have a different appearance. Like you can look at, especially this time of year, right now it's super warm for us, so we're already seeing buds swell on trees. And so I can tell definitely when I look at a tree, like that branch has swollen buds on it, like it's gonna leaf out or bloom here soon. And that branch looks like sunken and kind of a lighter color and more corky looking. and then I can cut that dead out. A lot of times though, like you can cut the dead and stuff out in season because you can tell for sure if it's dead, because you can see the branches with leaves and branches without. So you definitely can wait. There's no problem, like there's no issue waiting to cut out dead later on in the season. In this video, like I probably should have given basic tree pruning technique tips in this video, but that's what it really wasn't what it was about. It was more about the tool. So anyway, there were quite a number of questions about like, where do I cut the branch and things? And we have done a few videos about that in the past. So we'll try to remember to link them down below. Amy said, can you give an update on your winter sowing milk jugs? Yes, I can. I am seeing some growth and I'm so excited because it seems like when you do this method, this is my first time ever, but there's a lot of people who swear by it and do it every year. But you put your seeds out in these milk jugs or whatever kind of bottle you're using, and you water them the one time and then they just sit there. And they sit there and they sit there, and I'm checking on them every single day. And then one day I looked in the jugs and I could find there's Bee's Friend is up, there's some poppies up, stalk is up. So I'm still checking on them because we typically have, like we've had a lot of wind the last few days. So today I'll run out there and just make sure that I don't need to add any extra moisture, but I haven't watered them one time since that initial video. I watered the seeds in and that's it. That's all the water they've received, other than we did have a couple of very light snowfalls, and then one or two little rainstorms since then. So they have received some moisture. Janelle said, I know you said you like this tool better than the manual, but did you feel any kickback? With the manual, if the tree has a hard spot, the saw would stop and you would have to add more force. With the automatic, did it give any jerking when hitting a difficult spot? No, I didn't. The only time it kind of kicked back on me was you need to engage the blade before you go into the branch. You don't rest the blade on the branch and then engage it and turn it on, because then it'll like bounce and like want to bounce around. That was the only thing I noticed. That was on my very first try. And what happened, I thought it wasn't resting on the branch. I thought I had it in the air, but there was like a little branch nearby that it kind of caught on. So you do want to make sure as you're going in that the branch or that the blade is engaged, and then you don't receive as much as that kind of kickback. I'll let you know though, as we use the tool more and more, I'll let you know if I run into any issues like that. Robert said, do you know how heavy the saw head is? The whole tool itself minus the battery is 8.44 pounds, and a lot of it, most of it, is at the end where that saw is. So I think that's why it's the length it is. I think any longer, for me personally, it would be really hard to control. Erin thinks he could do like one more length longer, which is probably true. He's stronger than I am. But I felt like after a while, I don't think I could operate that tool all day. I think like an hour or two on that tool, and I'm tired because it is heavier at the end. Christina said, the Japanese maple that was behind you, which was in a pot behind me, will you be pruning that tree or removing the leaves? How will you get it ready for spring? So the leaves typically stay on the Japanese maples, and then the new ones push the leaves out. So those will fall gradually as the new leaves start coming out this spring. And I typically don't prune on that at all unless there's like a branch sticking out like where we sit. Or if there's anything that's majorly crossing or competing within the canopy of the tree. But it's been there now, I think I planted it, did I plant that 2 or 3 years ago in that pot? It seems like it was a while ago. Either way, it's done so well. It's a Bloodgood Japanese maple, which I think is a zone 5, and that's what we are. And it's survived in that container really beautifully. And the last question from that video was from Pat. Did Erin cringe when you placed his glasses on that tabletop? So I was wearing Erin's sunglasses as safety glasses, and I took them off and I set them down on the table, lens first. I don't think he cringed though. He doesn't spend very much on his sunglasses, and he has a ton of them because he tends to lose them. Next video is potato roll, seeds, compost pruning, and even a little bit of laundry. So I just did a vlog that day because I had so many things that I wanted to get done. And it was a really productive, lovely day. And you guys seemed to like that video, which made it really fun for me. First was from Dana. Where did you get the seed label sticks from? I got those from my parents' garden center, and I will try to remember to link them down below. I meant to go grab the bag and have it in front of, like, with me so I could show you, and I forgot. Next is from Creative Gardening. Do you have any fruit trees in your yard? I was thinking grapevines would look amazing on your arbors in your back formal garden if they perform well. So we do have grapes in the back formal garden. I think it's like a Vanessa or a Canadized grape. It's a red seedless, and they are wonderful, and Benjamin loves them. And he keeps like going, we go on walks, and he wants to go back there and check on it even now. There's no leaves or anything on those vines, and he remembers that from this last season, which is awesome. We have plans to put in some fruit trees. Not a lot, just a few like select varieties. It may not happen this year because we have some infrastructure things to do, but we are going to be amping up fruit production quite a bit over the next 1 to 2 to 3 years. Michael said, hey Laura, whenever I try to start seeds indoors, I always have issues with moldy fuzz stuff growing on my soil and killing my seedlings. I always use fresh soil and clean water. Why does this happen? The number one reason is too much moisture. If you have a humidity dome on there, typically like when I pre-moisten my soil and then I plant my seeds and then water them in and then put my humidity dome on, and I typically don't have to water them for several days after that because the humidity dome keeps so much moisture in there, and if you're adding more moisture on top of it, it's just too much. So I would maybe check on the watering situation. I mean, it's very important to keep your seeds moist until they germinate and to like be diligent with your seedlings and not let them dry out too much. But I think that they often get too much of a good thing. I think overwatering is very, very common, and that's probably like, I don't want to say that's exactly because you might have a good pulse on the water situation, but that's typically what the problem is. Laura said, could you talk more about heating mats? I don't have it in the budget to get those this year. Is there an alternative? Do I need them? You don't necessarily need them. The only thing that heating mats do is they help speed up germination. There may be a few rare seeds out there that like require a really warm temperature, in which case like a heating mat would be very helpful. But for all of your just like normal seeds, I only have 2 heating mats. And I don't typically, like I had them under my tomatoes and peppers and they came up in days and they're like already huge. And so it does speed things up, but it's usually not necessary if you're starting your stuff early enough. So definitely a fun thing to have, but not a necessary thing to have. Next question is from Ginger Snap, looking for more info on the Espoma Sanicare bedding. I see it listed on Amazon for $30 a bag. That seems pretty insane. That is really expensive. How much is this supposed to cost? So the Espoma Sanicare bedding is what I've been using in my chicken coop from the very beginning, and it's awesome, you guys. It's like a really finely shaved hardwood bedding that acts as a litter. So you don't have to actually clean out your entire coop every time. You can take a rake. I modified a rake and put hardware cloth over the top, and you just scoop it out kind of like kitty litter, and so you don't have to waste bedding. Like a bag lasts me forever. Anyway, you can order it in through like True Value for between $9 and $10 a bag. That's what we do when we can't get a hold of like if we can't find Espoma seed starting mix or something like that. We just ordered a bunch in through True Value, and it just arrives and they call you and you go pick it up. And so $9 to $10 that way. Definitely more expensive on Amazon. I don't know why that is exactly, but Amira asks, do you ever make anything that does not turn out perfect? Yes, I do see that a lot, and I just thought I'd talk about it. So I just want to share a cooking story with you guys about something that like will haunt me for all of my days. Erin and I were just married, and I volunteered to make the pumpkin pies to take to Erin's family's house. And we all started eating the pumpkin pie, and I realized after everybody was asking for more and more whipped cream that I forgot to put sugar in the pies. So like I made like the worst pumpkin pie that you could ever like make, and I served it to Erin's family like as a brand new married person, and it was like it haunts me. They were all like super gracious, and we laugh about it now, but anyway, things like that happen to me often actually. Patricia said, Laura, you are brave with the pussy willow coppicing. I have a red twig dogwood that I planted last spring, and I was wondering why the branches weren't bright red. I had read that to have the bright red branches, you need to cut it back. Do I need to cut all or most of the branches? I don't know if I can do it. So there's 2 different ways you can go about dogwood pruning. If you are using your dogwoods to cover something, then you don't want to do the coppice pruning method, because the coppice pruning is when you cut it down to very short stubs, which is totally, you can do that. And then you get the bright red fresh color. But if you're using it to cover, you only want to go in and cut out about 1/3 of the oldest branches out of the plant. So you'll still have some branches left, and then you'll cut out some of the old, and that'll rejuvenate the plant enough to send out some bright new, bright red branches. But then you don't lose a lot of your size, because when you coppice prune, that's another method for keeping your plant size controlled. So they won't get as big as you want them to be if you're covering something. Janice said, can I do that kind of pruning on my black lace elderberry? It would be for size control, and when would I do it? In the fall. in the fall. That was questioned. So we actually, my brother and sister-in-law did that in their garden last spring. There was a huge black lace elderberry right in front of a front window, which is a big, horrible placement. They bought the house. They didn't plant it there, but they thought, you know what, we'll just cut it all the way back. And it was kind of scary looking. Like they cut it was big established. And when they cut it back, you were seeing huge stumps there. And it came back so gorgeous and so fresh, and it does keep the plant smaller. So I would say, yes, you can do it to black lace elderberry. They're a super tough plant, and I would probably do it late winter, early spring. Last one from that video is from Terry. At what point do you remove the plastic top of the seed tray? I have multiple types of plants in a tray and only one type has sprouted. The rest have not. Do I keep the lid on until everything has had a chance to sprout or go ahead and remove since there are some seedlings? I typically wait until all my seedlings are up and then I give it a day or two after that before I remove the dome, because I just want like those brand new little babies. I want them to be kind of coddled for a day or two, and then I'll remove the humidity dome and I'll leave them like that for a day or two, and then I start turning on my fans. So I've got an oscillating fan in my plant room that helps just like move some air around, and it makes the seedlings really strong. Next video was 10 perennial grasses that I absolutely love, and I thought that would be a really fun video because I've seen a number of questions about perennial grasses and which ones we like, and so I featured 10 that I especially love and I've had a lot of personal experience with. First question was from Nicole. One of the grasses I have seen you use that I love is the King Tut grass. It's such a pretty combination with the Super Tunia Vista bubblegum. Why did you not mention this grass since it has done so well for you on so many occasions? The only reason I didn't mention that one is because it's not perennial in my area. And I just wanted to mention perennial grasses that you can plant in a flower bed and expect to have them come back every year. There are a number of annual grasses that I love, like Vertigo Pennisetum and Purple Fountain Grass and Skyrocket Pennisetum and Toffee Twist Carex. I mean, there's a whole bunch of annual grasses I love as well, but they don't return every year, and I just wanted to stick with perennials. Lorraine said, sorry if this is a repeat question, what is the proper way to cut back these grasses? All the way to the ground, or is it back to 10 or 12 inches? And then the next question was, do you have to cut back grasses every year? And if it's not an evergreen grass, they do need to be cut back. Like Carex are fairly evergreen. I think that's a dumb statement. They are evergreen. So in the spring, typically I don't cut them all the way back unless they've sustained a bunch of damage somehow, and then in which case it's totally fine in early spring to cut them back and they'll flush back new. But typically I just have to clean around the base of them and clean out any tattered leaves and anything that's damaged. And then the other type of grasses, they do need to be cut back. Like the ones that aren't evergreen, they'll need to be cut back all the way every single year. And I cut mine back to about like this, what is that, inch or two from the ground, and then they'll spring back fresh. Liz said, do you and Erin have any suggestions on how to hide above ground septic tanks? I'm wondering if maybe throwing a tall grass like the first one you mentioned between the tanks and the flower garden might be a great way to hide them from street view. But I'm not sure how it would look. Thank you for everything. I think that would be a fantastic idea. Grasses are awesome because it's not going to like mess with any infrastructure that's around your tanks or any of that. And they are beautiful. They are quick growing. One thing to keep in mind is that you can leave them up all winter, even though they won't have the same kind of color, but there will be a brief stint in the spring after you cut them back that you will still be able to see your tanks, because it'll take them a while to flush back and grow again. So if that is not an issue and you don't mind seeing them for a little while the grass is recuperating, then I think it's an excellent idea. .2 Trots. Are there any ground covers you love? My tiny backyard is just weeds and dirt. I'm determined to make it pretty this year. My absolute favorite ground cover ever is Lamium. I love it. It's super easy to find and it's super versatile. I can plant it in a sunnier spot, in a shadier spot. It comes with blooms that are either white, purple, or pink. There's a Lamiastrum, which is a little bit different. It has yellow blooms, and that's also a great ground cover, but they have beautiful variegated leaves and they're just tough as nails. A couple of other ones, like Sweet Woodruff is awesome if you don't mind it kind of spreading around in your area. It stays kind of shorter and it's like a woodland look, and it gets white blooms in the spring. What else? Oh, Pachysandra is one that I haven't tried yet, but I see it, like Jack Barnwell uses a lot of it in his gardens, and I think it's absolutely beautiful. And so that's a really great, pretty option. What else do I use? I don't use a whole lot of sedums. Sedums are a great ground cover in hot, dry areas. So if you've got that kind of condition or really poor soil, sedums are awesome. And there's like ground cover mints, ground cover thymes. There's a lot of different options. Ground cover like Veronica is really nice. I haven't really thought about that for a while, but I can picture the ground cover table at Andrews, because I always loved to water in the greenhouse, and like we had everything all organized to where vegetables and things were on one side, and then we had perennials on one side, annuals, and then we had a section, like a whole table full of ground covers. Angie said, how about the big pampas grasses? Have you ever planted any? I have absolutely not planted them. Meant to say actually, I've never actually planted one. There's a couple different types. So there's the pampas grass that has the big white or pink plumes on them that are beautiful, but I think they're like a zone 6 or 7. And so typically we haven't planted them here because they haven't survived. Some years they would survive, but then we'd have a bad year and it would take them all. And that's really, really discouraging when you get something nice and big and looking awesome and then a winter kills it. There is a hardy pampas grass though that gets every bit as big, but the plumes on the top aren't as showy. So they're still big and they're wheat colored and a little not as fluffy. A lot of people plant them here, and I've heard that people have problems with them being really invasive, like they spread all over the place. They don't here. And I don't know if it's because of our conditions. They do clump out, like they get massive, they get really wide, but they don't pop up all over the place and seed everywhere for us. And I don't know if that's a typical thing, but they are a really nice grass to cover things. They're very show-stopping. Erin, you kind of want to plant some in our garden. Yeah. PJ Mann said, do these varieties seed into or spread into the lawn? No, none of the varieties I shared do it for me. I've had really good luck with them staying very in their area. They're well behaved. Chantel says, can I split them up to put in other spots as they get bigger to fill out spaces in my garden? Yes. So you can go in and split grasses and divide them usually in early spring. And all of these are good candidates for that when they're big enough. You need to let them get a little bit of size first. Star Song says, I know you feature a lot of plants that you can grow, but how about doing a video on zone 3 and zone 10 plants? And it's something we could absolutely do. I just don't feel as comfortable recommending plants that I can't grow. Zone 3 stuff, I could definitely do that. Zone 10 plants would be annuals for me, so it would probably take on that bent. But it's something definitely, we have a lot of people that we know in the industry and a lot of gardeners that we've been able to meet, and I could definitely collaborate with some of those people and come up with some good lists, I think, still, and be fairly confident in relaying the information to you guys. So it's definitely something that we'll put on the list. Lorraine said, I need your advice. What type of grass can I grow under my evergreen? I've tried flowers, but they die or the deer get them. Okay, so, and she lives in central Idaho. The best grasses, I think, for underneath an evergreen, if it's shadier, do a Carex or the Hakanakloa. I talked about both of them in this video, and they would both do really well in that sort of condition. Next video was, I spent the day working at the garden center, and I loved that day. I just decided to go down and help out because they're kind of in the middle of setting up the garden center right now for spring because our weather has been so nice, and we planted up the pots downtown, and it was just really fun. Just hanging out with my mom and sister and doing some work. Elijah said, do you guys still have Phyllis the chicken at the garden center? Yes, Phyllis is very much alive and well, and she was actually not in the coop during that video. We have like a run built for her out closer to the front of the nursery. It's like this fenced off area where she can just like roam around, and that's where she was. And Janice said, enjoyed this video very much. Have you introduced your sister to your subscribers? Did I miss that one? I don't know that I've actually ever introduced Monica. I try to be very respectful of people's comfort levels with the camera. So every time I show up like at Andrew's or around family, I always tell people prior, like, hey, I'm coming down and I'm gonna have a camera because I'm doing a video. And some people are really camera shy, and I totally understand that because I used to be like that. And I still struggle with that every once in a while, believe it or not. And so I just I think her comfort level is increasing in front of the camera. It's kind of like with my mom. In the beginning, she was kind of uncomfortable, and now it's totally fine. It's kind of second nature for her. So anyway, I just try to be mindful of that. Cindy said, always wondered how these type of displays were done. When will the fountains be hooked up? The big one, the big horse fountain up in the entry of the nursery is already running. So I imagine that they'll have, his name is Juan, and he works in the seed plant in the wintertime, and I think they're going to bring him back over to the garden center nursery side in the next week or two. He is like the magician with the fountains. He can fix any problem, and he gets them running and keeps them beautiful. So they will probably be up and running within the next couple of weeks. And I love that. I love walking through the nursery. Like, all these fountains are for sale, but to see them running and to see, one, what the noise is like if it's a pleasing noise or if it splatters too much or whatever, it's really nice to see how they operate before you get it and put it in your own yard. Lavender Krall says, your eyes looked beautiful today. Can you tell, my mother-in-law thinks you wear colored blue contacts. I said no. Can you tell her please in the next answer video? I do not wear colored contacts. This is the real color of my eyes. Debbie said, how many acres are at the nursery? Beautiful setups. I don't know how many acres. Do you have a guess? It's 3 city blocks. if that gives you an idea, but most of that is like warehouses and seed cleaning plants. I would say that the nursery portion itself and garden center is probably 3/4 of a city block. I don't know what that is in acres. Kay said, does Andrew's seed get any Japanese maples from Wragge Nursery? Wragge? I work for them, and lately I've been seeing our stuff all over Oregon, Washington, and California. That's exciting, but no, I haven't heard of Wragge Nursery. I'm gonna have to look them up now. We get a lot of our Japanese maples from Isley Nursery. And last question from that video was Isla, what did you end up bringing home? So I brought home a new tree. It's a false camellia, Stuartia. I don't know, I've never grown one before and I thought it sounded interesting. A packet of sweet pea seeds and 2 little iron pots. I posted a picture of the iron pots and they are like little mini iron pots. They're so cute. And the last video from this week is using compost instead of mulch. So Erin and I just kind of like on a whim went down to the rock yard where they have bulk rock and mulch and big rocks and all that sort of thing. And we didn't intend on buying anything. We were just kind of on a it's like information. We were gathering information just to try to decide what we were going to do this year for mulch, because we want to get away from using bagged mulch if possible. Bulk mulch is less expensive. You don't have all the plastic bags and all of that stuff. So we kind of settled on some forest compost they have, which it looks beautiful out in the garden. And we have really crummy soil, you guys. It's really high pH. And my parents have been only mulching with compost. I think they use bagged still. It's, I can't remember what brand, but it's bagged compost, and that's what they top dress with. And it just kind of like works its way down into the soil, and it makes our plants so much happier. So anyway, we ended up getting a truckload of that, and we thought, well, we may as well just try it and see what it looks like, see how our plants react, and then see how far it stretches and all that stuff. So Claire said, how deep do you go down to remove old mulch or last year's mulch? We never remove any mulch. Somehow it just disappears. I honestly do not know what happens to mulch. I know a little bit gets picked up when we clean out the flower beds. We rake or blow out leaves out of the flower beds. And so naturally a little bit of it comes out, but not a ton. It just like, it disappears, and all of a sudden I see all my drip tubing. And so I feel like every year I need to be mulching again. And Harrison said, how thick do you like to make your mulch to suppress weeds the best? So I at least go a couple inches thick. Elizabeth at 507, what is the light blue silver planter? It reminds me of a blue spruce, but it seems more bush-like. I love the color on that. So that is a Procumbens blue spruce. The mature size is 2 feet high by 10 feet wide. So a really beautiful ground cover version of a blue spruce. Joy said, the compost mulch looks so nice. Do you think it will have more weed seeds than regular mulch? No, it shouldn't. And honestly, I've never really had problems with extra weed seeds in either mulch or compost, because we used to top dress with compost. That's what Erin and I used in our last garden primarily. It was baled compost, and I never had extra weeds. I think if you get it thick enough, it helps suppress. And of course, it's more soil-like than a bark mulch. So you're gonna have some weeds sprout in it, and I think that's just normal unless you're using like really thick bark or rocks or something like that. So I haven't really seen it be a problem. Also, when the weeds do sprout up, they're super easy to pull because they're in this really fluffy mix of stuff. So I really haven't noticed it being a problem either in my old garden or out at my parents' house. It's just, I think if you just get it thick enough, and don't use something from a reputable place, use good stuff. Don't just go to a friend's house and scrape up some compost. I don't know. If you don't know what's in it or how long it's been cooking or all of that stuff to make sure all the weed seeds are dead, I would just make sure you're getting it from a good source. Lisa said, can you please do a video on what pH means and how to fix your soil? I think that would be an excellent video, and we'll start working on that. That'd be a good one for this spring. Also, I use bulk mulch, and you have to be careful. I ask for the material on the outside of the big pile. One time I received mulch from the inside of the pile, and it was very hot. And I think in that case, I want to go back to you just want to make sure it's from a very reputable source, and that the compost is well aged, everything has been cooked properly. And yeah, and I have got my hands on some bad stuff before. I put some bad mix in my raised beds one time, and it was horrible. So definitely good to know where your soil is at currently and what your soil needs, and then also do some research on have them explain to you, wherever you're buying your mulch, have them explain to you what is in it and how it's processed. I mean, I had Clint down there at Ontario Rock and Landscape, who was helping us, he explained the whole process on the forest compost. And so it's just nice to know where it's coming from, what's in it. Jennifer said, just a question about when you do your spring fertilization, will you need to move your mulch out of the way, or will it seep through the mulch enough to get to the roots of the plants? When I fertilize in the spring, I like sprinkle it around the edge, and then I work it in with my finger. So it's kind of working in closer to the root system of the plants. And then it gets watered in. Kathy said, do you always mulch before you do your planting? I usually plant first, then mulch, but it's a pain getting around all the little plants. Yes, so I don't know. I actually find it easier now to mulch first and then plant, especially if I'm doing 4-inch annuals, because we do a lot usually in one area. And if I have those all planted, mulching around them is a huge pain. So if I can just do a big blanket mulch and then just scoot the mulch out of the way of the little hole I need to make, and then plant my stuff and then scoot the mulch right back around, it's so much easier because it's already there. And so that's typically how I do it. In this flower bed, it's mostly planted, and I planted a lot of annuals in that space last year, and I'll probably plant a few this year too, but it's very packed out with perennials and shrubs as well. So those will eventually take over that space, and I won't have to plant as many annuals, but I don't know where I was going with that, except for the fact that area looks empty, but there's actually a lot of stuff already there that I won't have to move the mulch out of the way for. John said, how long does this compost stay that dark color? My only worry would be it dry out and look more grayish over a couple weeks. And that's one of the things we're going to be testing out. Because that, like I said earlier, my parents use a bagged compost, and it starts out this beautiful, rich, dark color, and it does fade out a bit. And I typically like it when it's really dark and rich looking. So anyway, we'll be watching ours. It looks pretty good now, but it did rain a little bit yesterday, so there's a little bit of moisture in it. So we'll be watching it, and we'll let you know what we think. Tony said, doesn't compost plug up the holes in the drip tubing? No. There's little screens underneath each hole, and so it protects anything from being plugged. The biggest issue for us is having them plug with hard water. That's a bigger issue than any kind of compost. Patricia said, are there perennials that haven't come up yet? Will they get through the mulch? So yes, like I just said, the area is completely full of shrubs and perennials. Like there's, I think 8 David Austin roses. There's some summer wine 9 barks. There's the blue spruce, a couple trees. And then there's also serendipity alliums. There's yellow my darling echinaceas, purple illusion veronica. There's something I'm missing. There's a hydrangea in there. So that area is very, very full. And I made sure, like I said, to not put mulch. Like I don't pack it up against the trunk of trees. Like I kind of taper it in so that I don't have like this mulch layer around the trunk, because it's not healthy for the plant. And then I also don't cover the crown of the plant with mulch. It's just like the perennial sitting there and there's just mulch around it. Debbie said, did Erin grow up in a gardening family, or did he get interested after marriage? I would say that most of his interest for the type of gardening we're doing now has happened since we started the YouTube channel, because I think he's like, the more he's been filming and seeing projects and doing projects, I think I don't know, your appreciation has grown so much. But he started a lawn mowing business when you were 15. Yeah, he owned and operated a lawn mowing business. Like he had employees and everything for a number of years before he went to college, and actually sold the business and everything. So he's been doing lawn type work or outside type work for a long time. And my mother-in-law really likes to garden, and she's got a really pretty garden. So anyway, I think that it's in there, like it was in there growing up. But I think the type, like his interest has grown in like learning more about different types of plants and like delving into soil issues and all that kind of stuff. Sometimes to my chagrin, I used to be able to garden without any extra opinions. And now I get a lot of opinions about stuff, which are sometimes like they end up being very helpful and good. It's good to have, it's good to have a second opinion. And the very last thing I wanted to mention is from this morning's video, actually. We put up a mail time just because we received so many packages this week. I was overwhelmed by the amount of gifts you guys sent out, and they were all wonderful. In the video, I opened a box that had a KitchenAid in it. I mean, I didn't even know what to say. I was so overwhelmed, and there was no identification on who sent it. There was no card, there was no paperwork, there was nothing on the label on the box. I mean, I scoured the whole thing, and I even called down to the garden center because one of the boxes did get opened down there, and I was like, was there any paperwork? Is there any possible way that we're missing something? And the gal who opened it said no, there was nothing in it. It like looked like the other box. And anyway, I found out this morning that Tabitha from Texas sent us the KitchenAid, and I just wanted to give her a shout out and a thank you because I wasn't able to thank her in the video this morning. And in her note, it was just really sweet. She talked about how our channel has inspired her and helped her out in her garden, and how she's had a KitchenAid KitchenAid forever and felt like we really should have one. And it was just the sweetest thing. So anyway, I just wanted to let you guys know that. She also had the KitchenAid inscribed, and on it says, "To eat well is to garden," which is so incredibly appropriate. And so you will be seeing me use that in videos probably here really soon, along with the cake pans and parchment rounds that we received as well. And Benjamin got a pair of boots from Allie, and he wore those boots from the second I put them on him right after I was done with the video. It was like 4 in the afternoon, I think. And he wore them all the way until bedtime. He wore them for hours. And then this morning he saw him sitting on his bedroom floor, and that's what he wanted on. Like Erin went to go get him up this morning, and he saw the boots, wanted to put them on immediately, and he came into our bedroom wearing them. So he's really excited about that. Anyway, thank you to all of you who sent all that stuff, and I just wanted to make sure that I let you guys know I found out who sent it, and I'm just so thankful for that and thankful for all of you guys. Anyway, hope this video was helpful, and we will see you in the next one. Bye.